Russian oil refineries are going up in flames as Ukraine unleashes relentless waves of drone strikes deep into enemy territory, with 10% of Russia's refining capacity already offline and more targets inside. These attacks are beginning to impact the Russian economy, according to Euromaidan Press media outlet. The most significant Ukrainian strike took place in Crimea, where Ukrainians launched over 100 drones against Russian military airfields and air defense systems. To wear out Russian air defenses, Ukrainians deployed decoy drones, overloading Russian crews with targets and allowing the real drones to slip through. Then the Ukrainians destroyed a Russian Pantsir-S1 air defense system and a Bucha M1 radar, creating a gap wide enough for the Ukrainians to devastate Russian military airfields. Ukrainians also deployed naval drones equipped with anti-air missiles and FPV drones to strike targets along the coast and deny Russian aviation the ability to fly over the Black Sea to intercept incoming strikes. Euromaidan Press says that Russians used helicopters and jets to help track and take down Ukrainian drones. With these airfields heavily bombed and Russians unable to use their aviation, Russian air defense was weakened, especially over the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, where Russian helicopters are most often deployed. This enabled the Ukrainians to launch additional drone strikes toward Russian oil refineries located in Krasnodar Krai and the southern Rostov Oblast, flying over the Crimean Peninsula and surrounding seas with close to 80 long-range strike drones. According to Euromaidan Press, in Tuapse, civilian reports mentioned hearing over 40 explosions near the seaport and oil refinery in the city. Over the past weeks, Ukrainians have launched several more devastating drone strikes on Russian oil refineries and supporting infrastructure. Notably, Ukrainians hit a major oil refinery and depot in Krasnodar Krai, right under the nose of the main base of the Russian 90th Air Defense Brigade, even destroying several air defense systems during this strike. In Volgograd Oblast, Ukrainians struck the main oil refinery, which refines over 14 million tons of oil per year, several times over the course of many days, along with the Astrakhan gas processing plant in the area. Ukrainians launched strikes far beyond Volgograd Oblast, targeting the Saratov oil refinery, which processes over 7 million tons of oil annually. After Saratov, the Ukrainians struck the Ilsky oil refinery to the south, with over 6 million tons of oil annually, and the Syzran oil refinery near Samara, with almost 9 million tons of oil. Ukrainians also targeted Tula's oil refinery and the massive oil storage facilities there. Lastly, the Ukrainians conducted a final strike on the Ryazan oil refinery, one of the largest in Russia, processing over 17 million tons of oil annually for the third time this year, causing the plant to halt its operations once again. The targeted Russian oil refineries produce a combined 53 million tons of oil annually, dealing a significant blow to the Russian economy, which is largely dependent on oil and gas exports. On top of that, Ukrainians also targeted Russian pumping stations, striking 2 pumps in Chotkovo, Rostov Oblast, and disabling the entire facility at Krasnodar. These facilities are a critical component of the Russian oil refining infrastructure, pumping the necessary oil to refineries that process it. Taking out the oil pumping stations will starve the still operational refineries of oil to refine, while also heavily disrupting Russian exports. Overall, since the start of Ukraine's massive drone strike campaign targeting Russian oil refinery capabilities and infrastructure, Ukraine has taken over 10% of Russia's oil industry offline. Ukrainians are effectively outpacing Russia's ability to repair the damage. Recent strikes on refineries in Volgograd and Krasnodar Oblast alone have reduced Russian oil production by over 5%. Ukraine's success relies on mass drone production, with swarms of drones repeatedly bypassing Russian air defenses to hit major refineries like Ryazan multiple times. If Ukrainian strikes continue at this pace, Ukraine could disable up to 20% of Russia's oil industry in the coming months, dealing a severe blow to the Russian economy.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Sunday said Britain will use £1.6 billion in export financing to supply 5,000 air defence missiles for Ukraine, in closing remarks at a security summit in London with European and world leaders. The purpose of today's meeting was to unite our partners around this effort to strengthen Ukraine and to support a just and enduring peace for the good of all of us, he said. Our starting point must be to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now, so that they can negotiate from a position of strength, and we are doubling down in our support. According to Associated Press, Starmer warned that Europe had to do the heavy lifting in defending itself, but that the US remains an important ally and an indispensable partner. Earlier, Starmer said Britain, France and Ukraine had agreed to work on a ceasefire plan to present to the United States. The meeting comes 2 days after U.S. support for Ukraine appeared in greater jeopardy after President Donald Trump lashed out at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and said he wasn't grateful enough for U.S. support.
Afternoon. The first priority of this government, of any government, is the security and safety of the British people, to defend the national interest, particularly in these volatile times. That's why last week I announced the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. That's also why I met President Trump last week, to strengthen our relationship with America, and indispensable partners in defence and security. And it's why this weekend I've been hosting European leaders here in London to work together for the security of the United Kingdom, Ukraine, and Europe as a whole. Through my discussions over recent days, we've agreed that the UK, France, and others will work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting. Then we'll discuss that plan with the United States and take it forward together. The purpose of today's meeting was to unite our partners around this effort, to strengthen Ukraine and to support a just and enduring peace for the good of all of us. Our starting point must be to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now, so that they can negotiate from a position of strength, and we are doubling down in our support. Yesterday evening, the UK signed a £2.2 billion loan to provide more military aid to Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. And today I'm announcing a new deal, which allows Ukraine to use £1.6 billion of UK export finance to buy more than 5,000 air defence missiles, which will be made in Belfast, creating jobs in our brilliant defence sector. This will be vital for protecting critical infrastructure now and strengthening Ukraine in securing the peace when it comes.